tendency to make things too complicated. Often things that could be really simple are twisted and turned until they are at a level of complexity that was never necessary. We escalate things that don't need to be escalated, and we make things difficult that don't need to be difficult. We compound things that don't need to be compounded. Let me just start with the ladies this morning. Sometimes, ladies, we make our hair too complicated. We got one style in the front, and we got another style in the back, and we got 5 different colors, and then we add in an extra bundle just for good measure. It's too complicated. I look at the trends with babies these days, and we've made things extra complicated. There are 100 different kinds of diapers, and too many choices when it comes to formula, and 10 different levels for car seats. It's become too complicated. And let's not even discuss the current barbershop process, because it used to be that a man walked in and the barber got out the clippers and they went to work. But now they got stencils. And they're drawing lines, and men are getting all kinds of treatments. It's become too complicated. It seems that today's abundance of information and availability of options has pressed us to do more than what is necessary. Getting gas has gotten too complicated. You've got to answer 5 questions before the gas will begin to flow. Dialing the phone has gotten complicated. It takes more and more numbers just to make a call. And watches rarely have hands anymore. They've got dates and hours and temperatures. Everything has become too complicated. And I believe that this phenomenon has also translated over to how we deal with our issues. Let me be clear this morning. I know that issues are real, and I know that our circumstances are not simple. I don't take the struggles of God's people lightly, but in some instances, we've allowed our problems to rise to a level of complexity that is unwarranted. When we can't make ends meet, we get 2 and 3 jobs, and we withdraw from our retirement, or we borrow from family and friends. And this just causes things to get more complicated when the solution is simple. All we have to do is give our tithe and cut back on our spending. When we have issues in a relationship, we call and tell all of our friends. We post subliminal messages on social media, and we cut the person off that we have an issue with, when all we had to do was sit down and have a conversation. We seem to have a tendency to make things too complicated. My argument today is that we also do this with our individual shortcomings. When we have an area where we're falling short of the Word of God, we rationalize and we shame our own selves to a level that is beyond what the weakness is. In the places where we need work, to get away from some of the habits that need to be changed, we do all kinds of things rather than take the simple route. I believe that sometimes we cause our own deliverance to be more complicated than it has to be. Again, I'm not making light of any struggle, but there have been times that I have found myself wallowing, found myself constantly slipping, found myself continuing to stay in a place I should not be, when the solution could have been much more simple. Because all I had to do was get up. Yeah, I wasn't as stuck as I thought I was, Frida. It wasn't as hard as I allowed my mind to make it. There have been some situations that I continued to sit in when God had the solution right there. All I had to do was get up. Before I go any further, I want to make sure that I'm not preaching to any folks that ain't sitting in nothing today. Because if I got the wrong crowd, then we can just go in and take it home. So let me be sure that I'm not wasting the time of the saints. Is it anybody in here this morning that's sitting in anything? Yeah, are you sitting? Are you tarrying? Have you set up a spot there? Are you sitting in anything? Let me make it clear. Is it anybody that's sitting in a relationship or a job or a habit or an emotional spiral? Is it anybody that knows that you've been sitting at your own pity party? Is it somebody in here that knows that you're sitting at a place of jealousy and envy? Is it anybody that's big enough to admit that you've been sitting at a place of laziness and procrastination? Come on and ask your neighbor, are you sitting in anything? Because I'll be the first to testify that I am sitting in some places of personal struggle. I'm sitting in some judgment. I'm not talking about you, I'm talking about me. I'm sitting in some self-inflicted defeat. I'm sitting in some unhealthy eating and resting habits. I know nobody else in here is sitting in anything but me. But it's okay, because even though I truly love Jesus, I still find myself sitting in some things. I'm wallowing in my mess consciously. Is that anybody's testimony in here today besides mine? Okay, good. Because the Lord wanted me to share with you what he shared with me when he showed me that I was sitting in some stuff. Because the solution is simple sometimes, Erica. All you got to do is get up. And the Holy Spirit wanted me to talk about getting up today. He wanted me to share some things about getting up. The first thing is that you already know that you're not supposed to be sitting there anymore.
Come on.
When we acknowledge that where we are is not where we need to be, and then we get up from that place, it signifies to God that we're submitting to the true place that he has for us. It shows God, Tasha, that at least we know we aren't right, and that we want him to assist us in getting to where we really should be. We're talking about Matthew today, and the text says that Matthew was sitting at the tax collector's booth. And Jesus came by and told him to follow him, and Matthew got up and followed. When Matthew saw Jesus, there must have been something in him that recognized that where he was sitting was not where he needed to be, and that he needed to turn his life over so that he could find his proper place. When Matthew got up and followed Jesus, this meant that he knew that he was no longer supposed to sit where he was. Now, the Bible does not say that Jesus told Matthew where they were going. It does not say that he gave Matthew any assurance of where the journey would lead. He just told Matthew to follow, and Matthew followed. This tells me, Rodney, that Matthew looked at where he was, knew he shouldn't stay there anymore, and then he got up. Let me reiterate that point. Jesus didn't tell Matthew that everything was going to be sunny. He didn't tell Matthew that there would be an immediate turnaround in his life. He didn't tell him that there would be wealth or fortune or popularity. Yet I believe that because Matthew knew where he was where he was not supposed to be anymore. He knew he had to get up and make a change. And I want to encourage the people of God today. When you know that you're in a place where you're not supposed to be anymore, sometimes you just got to get up. When you know that the situation you're in was not meant for you, sometimes you got to get up. And there will be no guarantee, Vonda, that everything will be sunny. There is no assurance that there will be an immediate turnaround. There is no promise of fortune or wealth or fame. But if you know that you're in a place that was not destined for you, sometimes you got to get up. I think there might be one or two folks in the house today that are sitting in some seats where you know you do not belong. Somebody in here is sitting where you know that you should not sit anymore. Maybe it's a job that's changing your character, and maybe it's a habit that's tearing your family apart, or maybe it's an attitude that is neither productive or pretty. But I believe that somebody in the house, there's somebody here that knows that you're in a space right now where you no longer belong. I know that earlier we acknowledged that we're sitting there, but now we need to confess that we already know that we shouldn't be there anymore. And God told me to tell you to get up, because you know good and well that you're out of place. Those friends no longer hold the same values that you do. You know good and well that you're out of place. That relationship is no longer healthy for you. You know good and well that you're out of place. God has been calling you to do more for a long time. time. You know good and well that you're out of place. Your neighbor might be trying to act like this sermon ain't for them, but that's all right. But will you preach to your neighbor real quick just in case and say, you know good and well you're out of place? No, don't be scared. Look at your neighbor on the other side and say, you know good and well that you're out of place. And then I want you to look back at them with some real terrible grammar. Look back at them and say, and you've been known. Look at them on the other side and say, and you've been known. Yeah, I know that's how I'm not supposed to conjugate in the pulpit, but you've been known. You've been known that you needed to move away from there. You've been known that you needed to submit to God. You've been known that it was time for you to make a change. Somebody say, you've been known. You know good and well that you're not supposed to be still sitting where you're sitting. You've been known that it was a dead end for you and your family. You've been known that it was time for you to take a leap of faith. You've been known that God wanted more from you. Somebody say you've been known. Do I have any honest folks in the house this morning that'll open up your mouth and holler back at me and say, yeah, I've been known. Yeah, somebody say, I've been known. I've been known that it had already run its course. I've been known that it was going to end up hurt me. And my brother is terrible. I promise I got a real degree. I've been known that it was time for me to go. I've been known that I was messing up time and time again. Do I have any folks in the house this morning that'll say I'm sitting in the midst of some stuff and I've been known it was time for me to get up. I've been known it was time for me to get a better job. I've been known it was time for me to write my book. I've been known it was time for me to try to get promoted. But something on the inside of me caused me to keep sitting where I was sitting. But I need somebody that's ready in the house this morning that says what I have come to realize is that when things get messed up in my life, sometimes all I gotta do is just get up. Will you open up your mouth and say, I've been known it was time for me to get up. I've been known I shouldn't have kept sitting there. I've been known I shouldn't have kept taking their calls. I've been known I should have cut them off from my personal life. I've been known I should have gone and apologized. I've been known I should have been in Sunday school. I've been known I should have done better by my mama. I need some real OGs in here that'll say, I know I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do. I know I'm not sitting where I'm supposed to sit. And the truth of the matter, God, is that I've been known what you told me. Oh, but now I'm ready today. And I realize that it might be real simple. But sometimes, Andrea, all you gotta do is get up. Somebody throw your head back and say, I've been known I should have got up. Will you just preach to somebody real quick in here and say, that seat has expired. It's time for you to get up. You've been sitting right there too long. It's time for you to get up. Yeah, that seat has expired. It has reached its expiration date. That mission has maxed out. That journey is now jaded. Your seat has expired. And if you ain't scared in here, will you look back at that same neighbor and say, how much longer are you gonna sit? How much longer are you gonna sit? I didn't come to make you feel good. I came to make you get up. Look at somebody across the aisle and say, how much longer are you gonna sit? How much longer are you gonna sit? Because sometimes all you gotta do is get up. And you've been known. And you've been known that you shouldn't be sitting there anymore. The second thing that I wanted to share about getting up, just for the saved folks that are here today, the second thing I wanted to share about getting up is that it doesn't matter where you're seated. Let's talk about the background here, because Matthew was seated in a terrible place. He was a Jew that was hated by the Romans. He was a Jew that was hated by the Jews. He made his living by swindling his own people and forcing them to pay more taxes than what they owed. That's what it meant to be seated in the tax collector's booth. It meant that he sat in a seat that was one of disrespect. It meant he sat in a seat that was one of disgrace. It meant that he sat in a seat that was shameful and low. But all of this changed when Matthew got up to follow Jesus. You see, it didn't matter where he had been sitting before. All that mattered, Rosalind, was that he got up. It didn't matter. I'm preaching to you right now. It didn't matter where his life had been before. Am I preaching to you? All that mattered was that he got up. Let me tell you something, beloved. Don't let anybody convince you that the place that you're sitting in is a place from which it is too low for you to rise. It does not matter where you have been seated. All you have to do is get up. I know that's real simple, but see, the enemy would have us to believe that where you are right now is a point of no return. Since you've been doing it, and since you've been doing it so long, and since it's so disgraceful, you don't want anybody to know, so you might as well stay in that seat. But God has too much planned for you beyond where you are sitting right now. Now that's somebody's prophecy in the house. God has too much planned for you beyond where you sit right now. I know God's been good. I know he's been taking care of you in this seat. But God could really show you something if you would stand. So I don't care where you are, and I don't care what you're doing, and I don't care how bad it is. No matter where you are seated right now, all you got to do is get up. Please don't allow anyone or anything to convince you that just because you've been sitting in a seat that was shameful, you got to stay there. God has enough changing power that where you've been sitting is absolutely no indication of where you can go if you just get up. Come on and encourage your neighbor, because you just finished fussing them out, and look at them and say, no seat is too shameful for you to get up. Yeah, I know somebody needs you. They need you to smile at them when you say that, because somebody in here is like me and you've done some shameful stuff. No, I'm not talking about last year. I'm not talking about in high school. I'm talking about this year. Somebody in here is like me and you've done some shameful stuff. So when you say it, I need you to smile at them, because they kind of shame anyway. Smile at them and say, no seat is too shameful for you to get up. But I believe that God has got some people in the house like me that have some stuff that is so shameful that you're involved in, that you really don't want anybody to know what you need to get up from. Is there anybody's testimony in here? I know everybody's dressed up and I know everybody's looking all churched up, but I believe there's some folks in here like me that have got some stuff back behind the curtain, got some seats that you're sitting in behind the curtain, and somehow the devil has convinced us that where we are is too shameful for us to get up. But I just want to encourage you today, because I want to talk about where I am in my life, because I believe that if I share my testimony, it'll help somebody in here. Is anybody willing to be transparent to me with me? Yeah, so look at that same person today, and you don't have to finish the sentence, but look them dead in the eye and say, if you knew about my seat. Yeah, now I want everybody to think about this. If you knew about my seat, you wouldn't think your seat was so bad. If you knew about where I got up from, you would know that it's possible for somebody to get up. If you knew about my seat, you would know that no amount of dirtiness can stop you from rising. I need somebody in here that'll testify with me today. That'll say, if you knew about my seat, you know that anybody can get up. If you knew where I started from, if you know that getting up is always possible, you can't be too dirty. You can't be too ratchet. You can't be too nasty to be able to get up from where you are. I didn't come to encourage the saved folks. I came to encourage the struggling folks. I didn't come here for the perfect people today. I'm going to preach that message on no day. I came here for the people morning that'll just open up your mouth and look up towards glory and say, I just want to get up. Where I am is real, real low, and what I've done was real, real foul, and how I've lived is real, real suspect. But I need the devil to know that I can't stay here. I just want to get up. And if you're waiting on anybody to come through like Jesus did Matthew and say, follow me, then I'll be your volunteer this morning. God said, follow me. He don't care where you're starting from. He don't care what you did yesterday. He doesn't even care what you did this morning. God said, follow me. Will you just open up your mouth and say, I'm ready to get up? Okay, I feel like y'all are going kind of slow with me. So let me just get on to my last point to encourage you. Because the Lord told me to tell somebody that you need to go on and stand, even if you're not completely steady. Because I think somebody in here is waiting to testify until they can do a complete turnaround. Somebody in here is waiting to change until you can make sure that you never go back. But God told me to tell you, sometimes you need to get up, even if you're not completely steady. Does that make anybody feel better in here today? Because when I started to get on my feet, Tasha, I was not completely steady. When I started to get out of my seat of struggle, there were some days that I sat back down. Oh, but God said, get on back up, baby. Even if you're not immediately steady, it's going to take some time for you to get it all right. It's going to take some time for you to change what you've been doing for 20 years. But God told me to tell you, sometimes you got to get up, even if you're not completely steady. It's unlikely that when Matthew got up, everything changed in his life, because somebody, Isonet, was still looking at him side-eye. Somebody in his community still wanted their tax money back. Somebody in his neighborhood was never going to trust Matthew. But Matthew still got up, even though his stuff was steady. His reputation was rocky. His future was unsure. His finances were up in the air. Everything was not steady. But he still followed Jesus. And you're going to have to make a decision, because there are going to be some people in your life that are always going to look at you side-eyed. There are going to be some people in your neighborhood that are never going to trust you after what you did. There are going to be some people in your community that are never going to expect you to end up to be nothing. But God told me to tell you, you still got to get up. Even though everything ain't going to be steady, I dare you to get up and step out on faith. I dare you to get up and begin to walk with Jesus. Will you just give your neighbor your hand and say, let us stand. Let us stand up together. Because if we stand up together, then even though we might be shaky, we can hold one another up. Now will you preach to your neighbor one last time and say, I'm shaky, but I'm standing. Now I need somebody to testify. Say, I'm shaky, but I'm standing. I sat back down last week. I'm shaky, but I'm standing. Every day I'm getting better. Every day I'm making better choices. Since I got up, I'm still a little bit shaky, but I'm still able to stand. Can I just encourage you in the house today? I don't care if your money still ain't right. I don't care if you still ain't got no boo. I don't care if they still didn't forgive you. As long as you're standing, it don't matter if you're shaking. Somebody say, I'm standing, even though I'm shaking. I'm standing, even though I'm still tempted. I'm standing, even though I slip back every now and then. Somebody any people that want to get up, somebody say, I'm standing. Even though I'm shaky, I'm still making it work. Even though I'm shaky, I'm becoming a better person. Even though I'm shaky, I'm getting deeper in my word. Even though I'm shaky, I know how to give a high praise. Even though I'm shaky, where are the shaky praises at? Where are the struggling praises at? Where are the crooked praises at? That'll say, I made a decision to get up. And since I'm up, I'm still walking in glory. While I'm shaky, while I'm putting it together, while I'm learning how to live holy, I know I'm shaky, but I'm still serving. I know I'm shaky, but I still bless him. Sometimes, all you gotta do, get up. Don't let depression hold you down. Don't let shame hold you down. And don't let the fact that everything is not going to be perfect hold you down. Even though you might be a little shaky. Even though you might have days that are still questionable. Even though you might make decisions that are not aligned as they should be. Still stand. And say, for God I live. And for God I die. I'm shaking. I'm shaking. Now I stand for Jesus. Shaking and all. Because there's going to come a time when I'm going to get steady. And the enemy had better be on guard for the moment that I get steady. Because I believe that Rodney told us today that after Matthew was the tax collector, we now call him Saint Matthew. The same one that stole from his own people. The same one that robbed the poor and gave it to the rich. The same one who lied and cheated and stole. He got up shaky. But he ended up steady. I'm working to get more and more steady every day. If God can take Matthew, see, we always think the disciples are so perfect, but Matthew was sitting there. Matthew was sitting at the tax collector's booth, and Jesus called him. That means that Matthew was in the act of robbing God's people. He was in position, waiting for the next Jew to come by to rob them. And God called him. My God. Shake. But he got up. Follow Christ. And now that the story is told, Saint Matthew became steady. Wrote one of the Gospels. The robber, the cheater, wrote one of the Gospels of Jesus Christ. Don't you think that you can't get up from wherever you are right now and God transform you into one of the steadiest characters in the kingdom? I believe it for each and every one of you. I believe it for myself because I'm still shaking. God can use anybody if you get up. If you get up, stop doing what you've been doing. Stop doing what you've been doing. Get up. That's the first step. Sometimes just get up, and then the path becomes clear. The doors of the church are open. If there's someone here today